What a joy to be with you this glorious October afternoon. I want to say a word of appreciation to Father John Paul and Father Jonah for the invitation to come and join you for this celebration, and to say a word of appreciation for my brother priests who have returned, some as former pastors, some as native sons, to be a part of this celebration as we observe the feast of the patron of the parish, St. Francis of Assisi. I know it is also Oktoberfest, but I think the feast day trumps Oktoberfest. But anyway, it is wonderful to be with you and to celebrate with you this joyous day. 101 years ago, Francis Clement Kelly arrived in Oklahoma as the second bishop of Oklahoma City and Tulsa. He took up his residence in the home that had been built for his predecessor, Bishop Mearshart. At that time, it was kind of a country home. It was a little bit out of the city. The city was moving this direction, but it was not here yet. But Bishop Kelly took up his residence there, and as the city and the church grew, a year later he recognized that the handful of faithful that had gathered to celebrate in the little chapel in the Mearshart house, as it has come to be known, was growing. They weren't a part of a parish yet. It was just a convenient place to celebrate the Mass with the bishop. But Bishop Kelly decided that it was time that a parish, a proper parish, be established. And so 100 years ago, in 1925, he established the parish of St. Francis of Assisi. This parish. A few years later, when the Depression took hold in Oklahoma and around the nation and around the world, even though the community was growing, it was becoming clear that the bishop's residence was no longer an adequate place for the bishop, the pastor whom Bishop Kelly appointed, for the sisters who came to support the school that was also established. All of them were residing together in the Mearshart house. And so, to make room, Bishop Kelly, perhaps you know this story, was given lodgings at St. Anthony Hospital, took up his residence there at St. Anthony Hospital as the parish began to grow and indeed to flourish. From small beginnings, a handful of faithful gathered in the bishop's chapel to celebrate Mass. All of these years later, 100 years later, 101 years later, since the arrival of Bishop Kelly, St. Francis of Assisi Parish has grown to be a flourishing, strong model parish in our archdiocese. We look back with gratitude at what God has brought about, the way in which not only the parish has grown, but the school has grown. Marriages, families, so much has taken place here, been a part of this parish life here at St. Francis of Assisi Parish. That's what we are celebrating today, 100 years of parish life. Some years later, when they had outgrown yet another church, this beautiful church was built in the 1940s. What a wonderful journey of faith from those small beginnings, St. Francis of Assisi Parish and parishioners and priests and religious, and all who have been a part of this community have traveled together. The readings that were selected for this Mass, marking the centennial of the parish, are appropriate for a variety of reasons. The beautiful first reading from the first book of Kings, which I have to confess is a very real favorite of mine, describes a journey of faith, which is a beautiful model for the life of the church. It describes the journey taken by the prophet Elijah when he was being persecuted by Queen Jezebel. He fled for his life, literally, and when his strength was practically exhausted, he lay down to rest under a broom tree, whatever that is, and he fell asleep. And as he slept, suddenly an angel of the Lord appeared to him, took care of him, gave him instruction, gave him bread to eat and water to drink. And he was told to get up and go. And when he awoke from his sleep again, he traveled on for 40 days and 40 nights, guided by the Lord, obedient to the Lord, until he came to the mount called Horeb, or Mount Sinai, where the Lord would eventually where the Lord appeared once again to Elijah. He appeared mysteriously, not in the earthquake or the wind that seemed to be signs of God's power, but in a gentle whispering sound. Elijah recognized that it was the Lord who was speaking to his heart once again, strengthening him, guiding him, assuring him. It was that mysterious theophany, manifestation of the Lord, that gave Elijah the courage that he needed to do the will of the Lord, not to continue to run and flee from the wicked queen who was seeking to destroy God's people and Elijah himself, but strengthened by the Lord, he returned and continued the journey of faith and the mission that the Lord had entrusted to him. It was a story of beginnings, if you will, how the Lord had revealed himself to Elijah in the desert, strengthened him for the journey. In much the same way, we can imagine the intrepid forebears of ours who came to this out-of-the-way place, accompanying Bishop Mearshart and subsequently Bishop Kelly and the sisters who came to establish a school and to build up a parish. Small beginnings, very small beginnings, but strengthened by the Lord and obedient to the Lord, they continued the journey which has led us ultimately to this day. Faithful to the Lord, God has blessed this small undertaking, and it has prospered. Today we are giving thanks to God for all that has transpired these last 100 years at St. Francis of Assisi Parish, from those small beginnings under the leadership of Bishop Kelly. We hear in the second reading today from the first letter of St. Paul to the Corinthians that God chooses the weak and makes them strong. And even though today we look around us and we see evident signs of God's favor, it's not because of ourselves and our talents. God chose us because our forebears, he recognized, would be faithful. And he could work with them. And he did work with them. And so ultimately we see this beautiful church, this beautiful school, this beautiful parish, and the ways in which it has flourished for the past 100 years. And we realize that it's not our doing. It's not even the doing of our forebears who have gone before us. This is God's work. All of it is God's work. All God asks of us is that we be faithful, that we cooperate with what he is doing in our midst, what he wants to do in us and through us. And as long as we cooperate, the Lord will use us to carry forward his mission. In the gospel today, we hear Jesus' beautiful words from this beautiful 15th chapter, "As the Father has loved me, so I love you. Remain in my love." This is what the Lord asks of us, simply to abide in his love, resting in him, allowing him to use us to continue the mission to build up the church. It's his work. He asks us simply to remain in him, make ourselves available to what he wants to do in us and through us. And he will continue to build up this local church, this local parish, this local school, our archdiocese. Our job is simply to abide in him, put our faith in him, put our gifts at his service as good stewards of the many gifts that God has entrusted to us. It's his work. He asks us to be faithful stewards of his gifts, as our forebears indeed have been. So today, as we celebrate, we remember with joy and gratitude those who have gone before us, the many families, your ancestors, many of you I know who have been in here for this parish for multiple generations. We thank God for their fidelity. We thank God for their good stewardship. For those who have been a part of the mission of this parish, this school, who have put their gifts at the service of the Lord and at the service of one another. This I command you, Jesus says, love one another. Abide in me. This is what the Lord asks of us. As we look forward, we're looking back, celebrating what has gone before us, but what is the Lord asking of us as we look forward? Remembering that it has been God's work all along. What he asks of us is simply to continue to abide in him and to continue to love one another.